All right, so we're going to talk about evolutionary stones now, as far as how they work. Now, I've always wanted to know how the evolutionary stones in Pokemon always worked, but I think I might have an idea of how it really does work. So basically, because the way evolutions work in Pokemon, everything's made of energy, and everything can transition into something else, moving its molecular structure on. Like, for example, take like the Pokemon Ditto. It can rearrange its molecule structure into basically anything, therefore it's pretty good at copying any Pokemon. Again, Mew can do the same thing, because it's just skilled like that. So here's something that's really interesting to think about. So how is it that an evolutionary stone that's probably made of radiation, rather, and that's what we're going to talk about, how is it that it can give off a set of radiation that can cause a Pokemon to evolve, and it's infused with that kind of elemental radiation? Now, this kind of thing has actually been scientifically proven with the fact that there is such thing as, like in real life, there is such thing as called, like, it's evolutionary radiation, but I don't know what the scientific term would it be for it. It's basically think of it like, you know, radiation can give, like actual radiation, you know, can give off, like, it can emit different types of energy portions that can cause certain things to, like, you know, chemical and physical changes in science, they can change drastically. You can alter something's molecular structure with radiation. I had seen, you know, like the superpowers, you know, the idea that, you know, like somebody like fell into some waste dump and then they got superpowers, for example. I mean, obviously you don't try this in real life, but you could sort of see where they got the fictional idea for that. Like, as far as comic books go and all that. I know Marvel's done it a couple times all the time, and DC Comics has done it a couple times. How you could even talk about how the Joker from Batman, you know, he fell into a bunch of chemicals, and then, you know, he survived, and he just went insane after that because it like screwed up who he was and all that. Again, molecular structure changes. He evolved over time, you know, his behavior evolved. So basically, think of it like Pokemon, but as far as Pokemon goes, you know, it just has its own evolutionary type. So basically, because they're infused with a certain element, like, for example, like take like a Firestone, for example. Obviously, you know, this, you can see where this one's going. Like, Eevee evolves into Flareon with a Firestone. So, as well as like a Water Stone to a Vaporeon, a Thunderstone to a Jolteon, and it's basically like, you know, you take the stone, you put it towards the Pokemon, and when you infuse it with that radiation, it interacts with their molecular structure, and therefore, because it's elemental radiation, it's forcing them to like inherit that much power and then force their evolution into that elemental type. For example, again, like Jolteon, Thunderstone, a Vaporeon, a Water Stone, or Flareon, a Water Stone, or a Firestone. It's really interesting how they made those stones too, or even like Mount Moon. You have like really rare stones, like a moon stone. It gives off like a moon radiation, sort of, or whatever the heck kind of moon powers. Something like Clefairy and Clefable, and then Jigglypuff to Wigglytuff, and some of these other Pokemon that I can't remember off the top of my head, like Nidoqueen and Nidoran and Nidoqueen, Nidorino to Nidoking, and then there was like another Pokemon called like Regine or something like that, and it evolves from a Nidoran. Nidorina, and then Nidorino and Nidorina would evolve in a Nidoking and Nidoqueen, Nidoqueen and Nidoking, and then you would have, you know, I think a Nidoran female. I'm not sure about a male because I haven't tried it yet. Can evolve into a Nido region, or redesign, or whatever it was called, Regan, sorry. And I think really what they did with that evolution was because it was supposed to be like kind of like a side evolution, you know, kind of like, so, you know, if they wanted to evolve it into something else, but again, you get the idea. You know, basically, like, you know, a bunch of stones are made, and they probably either forged them using advanced technology, or they also they mined them in the earth and all that, or whatever Pokemon takes place. And I think it does take place on Earth, but it's like, you know, its own version of it, though, you know. So it's basically a bunch of man-made stones, basically, or nature-made stones, what are like Arcturus's creations, or, you know, like kind of like the plates it made, you know, that enhance its typing. Very interesting indeed, you know. So it's pretty cool. Elemental stones that give off that radiation that can cause a molecular and a physical and chemical change in one's appearance. So that's pretty cool. Think how those stones actually work. And then there's actually other stones too, believe it or not, that were actually not used, like a poison stone. And believe it or not, Leafeon was actually supposed to evolve using a leaf stone back in Gen 2. There was a prototype. You know, I've already mentioned before, Leafeon was one Pokemon, but it was moved to Gen 4, and then they introduced Glaceon. So maybe that's probably why they brought it back in Gen 4, but at the same time. But as far as we know, there's no evidence to believe that Glaceon was in Gen 2, at the moment at least. It could still be part of many of the, many of the Pokemon we haven't seen yet, that maybe they were planned for it. We're still trying to figure out that, but I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest, though. But Glaceon was added in Gen 4, and who knows if it had a beta design. So, again, like I said before, you know, if you're new to this channel, you know, subscribe. If I find something else, I'll definitely talk about it. But right now, that's it.